Thank you for joining me for the third instalment of the Women in Resilience Leadership webinar series. For those of you that know me, my name is Bree. For those of you that don't, it's nice to meet you. And as always, we'll be recording this live session and disseminating it to those who couldn't make it today. As most of you will know, I am Melbourne-based, as are a lot of you out there. And I really wanted to take a moment to check in and acknowledge the difficult time that we're all going through. This seemingly endless lockdown is having a host of detrimental effects on a lot of people, including myself. So at the conclusion of today's presentation, I invite you to stay online for an informal chat or to reach out and send us an email and let us know how you're going. Sometimes being able to get things off your chest to someone new can be just enough to keep us going that little while longer. Anyway, last month we discussed organisational culture, and this month we'll be discussing leadership behaviours. Each month we do try to bring you something new and interesting, so if you have any topic ideas or would like to be a guest speaker, please reach out to Sam or myself, as we would love to be facilitating topics we know you're interested in, not just those that interest us. So without further ado, let's get started. Leadership behaviour has been studied far and wide, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. Most studies agree that there are 4 distinct behaviours that good leaders should demonstrate. There is directive leader, supportive leader, participative leader, and achievement leader. Chances are, if you've done a leadership course, you're already familiar with these. For those who may not be, I just want to briefly run through what they are and when they're effective. So the directive leader informs their team of what is expected of them, such as controlling what they do, how they perform their task, and scheduling and coordinating all work. Directive behaviour is most effective when people are unsure about a task, when they're new to their roles, or when there's a lot of uncertainty in the environment, somewhat like at the moment. One downfall, though, of the over-deployment of this style of leadership is that it leaves little room for autonomy and innovation. The supportive leader makes work pleasant for their workers by being friendly and approachable and showing concern for employees. This is considered most effective in situations in which tasks and relationships are physically or psychologically challenging. And one downfall of this style of leadership is that it's easy for the urgency of tasks to be miscommunicated or ignored. The participative leader will consult with their employees before making decisions on how to proceed. It's believed to be effective when subordinates are highly trained, skilled, and experts in their fields. One downfall of this style of leadership is that the consultation can be time-consuming in order to achieve consensus or close enough to. Then there's the achievement leader. They'll set goals for their employees, expect them to perform at their highest level, and show confidence in the ability to meet these expectations. It's most effective in professional or achievement-oriented environments like direct sales. One downfall of this leadership style is the pressure on employees to perform and a propensity for them to feel unsupported if they don't. Leaders' behaviourship styles can be fluid. A leader may employ some or each of these styles depending on the environment in which they find themselves, whilst other leaders may stick steadfast to the style with which they're most comfortable. Of course, the 4 styles I've mentioned, it's just one theory on leadership behaviour. Another example defined a different set of behaviours for leadership, which were work facilitation, group orientation, decision process, work group representation, and networking and value-based. So who do you want to be as a leader? Personally, I try to implement all the styles of leadership depending on the situation in which I find myself. I want to be known as a fair leader, a supportive leader, someone who celebrates my team's achievements, and I want my employees to trust that I can take control and steer the ship when the situation calls for it. Think about what your beliefs are and the behaviours that make you a great leader. Now that we've discussed the 4 leadership behaviours, in order to understand how to elevate women professionally, it's crucial that we make ourselves aware of some behaviours that are distinctive of female leaders. In a study conducted by Lee Harrison on how organisations can crack the code to make real progress, there are distinguishing behaviours and traits of women who have risen to senior levels of leadership in their professional careers. Female leaders have a clear shared career path compared to non-leaders who are often found not to be clear or outspoken about their professional goals. Effective female leaders also self-advocate. They can influence higher levels of management. They are good delegators. That's one I definitely need to work on. They believe where there is a will, there is a way, regardless of barriers or obstacles. They're self-confident, self-assured. They step outside their comfort zones and take risks to grow and develop themselves and their organisations. They network. They're strategic thinkers and speakers. They seek out mentors. They're strategic decision makers, and they believe they must always work harder. They also understand that personal sacrifices are the nature of the beast. As you can see, female leaders bring a host of unique traits and amazing behaviours that contribute to their leadership skills. Which of these are you great at, and which do you need to work on? As female leaders, we must ensure our companies take responsibility for creating an environment where women can actually understand and achieve the things that will set them apart and flourish. An organisation that does not give women space for growth could waste an otherwise extremely effective female leader. One challenge that most female leaders face, far more than their male counterparts, is the need to be perceived as warm and nice. This societal expectation has crossed the bounds of the personal and landed in the workplace. We also feel pressure to be competent at times or tough at other times. That's what society and company expects of male leaders. I'm sure you can see a problem here. Some of these qualities are actually polar opposites. Until we can change all of society's traditional views on what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a leader, we must navigate this difficult space and these gender biases. One study collected data from 64 female leaders, VP or higher, from 51 companies, and concluded there are actually 4 of these types of paradoxes that only female leaders must confront. The first is demanding yet caring, where we must demand high performance from others while demonstrating we care about them to avoid being called intimidating, pushy, or cold. The second is authoritative yet participative. Here we must assert our competence to avoid being perceived as not credible, yet admit our weaknesses to entice others to collaborate with us. The third is advocating for ourselves yet serving others. This one tends to be one of the tougher to negotiate. It's where we need to get our own professional needs and goals met whilst helping others achieve theirs. If we're too eager to collaborate and share information and ideas, we can easily end up feeling taken advantage of when this isn't reciprocated. However, when we're seen as too focused on our own goals, suddenly we're aggressive and unapproachable. The last one is maintaining distance yet being approachable. Women need close relationships with those around them, and this can be hard for leaders to achieve, as they also need to have a degree of separation from their colleagues and team members. Maintaining a semblance of impersonal distance meant that female leaders were seen as having a leadership presence, professional, objective, serious. However, other adjectives used to describe them were stiff, egocentric, and apathetic. Many female leaders have had to work extremely hard to convey the more intimate sides of their personality, like warmth, social, personable, easy to connect with. And these are not things that male leaders have to do. If your head is spinning and this all seems too much, you're not alone. But the good news is there are strategies to deal with this. You can adapt to the situation at hand by showing niceness or toughness depending on the situation and the audience. Which situation and to which audience you'll need to figure out for yourself, as I couldn't find a tried and tested algorithm. Another strategy is to go in order. That's offering the carrot first, building the relationship, establishing trust, and making people want to help you succeed, and then only bringing out the stick if that doesn't work. By that, I mean show your tough side, be demanding or directive. Read pushy, cold, impersonal, intimidating. The next strategy in your arsenal is to look for win-wins. This generally involves some compromise, but can be an effective way to win people to your side. This is a tried and tested negotiating technique that is not just effective for women, but we do just happen to be better negotiators the majority of the time. You can be tough on tasks, but soft on people. Think about how you tell people their ideas aren't great. Consider posing questions rather than making statements. For example, instead of saying, "This is terrible and you can't be seriously presenting this as an idea," say, "Can we do some more research on this before we pull the trigger? Or can we test this against other companies?" The other way of achieving this is to draw a line between the task and the person. You can then passionately argue the efficacy of the task or project whilst maintaining the friendship outside of the disagreement. But remember, you must both actually share this strategy for it to work. You can recast behaviours and reframe them so weaknesses may actually be considered strengths. Vulnerability can convey inner confidence in a way, and disagreements and negative feedback can be conveyed as improvement opportunities. All in all, these paradoxes take a lot of work to overcome. And in the long run, I actually think it would be easier if organisations and societies systematically changed to alleviate conflicting expectations for women and additional hurdles for their leadership. But as long as female executives face these kinds of problems, we need to find ways to manage them. I actually take issue with some of these methods, as well as taking issue with having to face these paradoxes. However, I wanted to present them to you in case this is something you've been consciously or unconsciously struggling with in your workplaces. In recent years, there has been a societal push to ensure there are more female leaders in the corporate world. However, whilst affirmative action ensures more women are promoted, it doesn't actually help women to prepare to lead. All too often, it is suggested that for women to be effective leaders, they should emulate men. This type of logic fails to account for the poor performance of most leaders who, for the most part, are men. The real problem is not a lack of competent females. It's too few obstacles for incompetent, overconfident, narcissistic, and unethical men in charge. As a consequence, leadership effectiveness and leadership emergence are out of sync, and most people believe there is no difference between male and female leaders. So I say we flip this thinking and suggest that male leaders actually need to learn from women. Here are some things we can teach leaders to improve their performance. Competence should beat confidence. Have you ever had your superior take credit for your work? Have you been on the receiving end of aggressive behaviour when your superior clearly isn't well versed on the topic? Have you heard higher ups big noting and self-promoting when their words don't match their actions or abilities? Women are far more willing to admit their knowledge gaps and rectify them rather than bluster their way through with arrogant confidence. This makes us more trustworthy and increases our credibility. We lead with EQ and IQ. The carrot and the stick approach should only be deployed if it has to be. Women tend to win people's hearts and minds to produce higher levels of team engagement, performance, and productivity. We motivate through transformation, not intimidation, leading to higher levels of job satisfaction and efficiency. Empathy is not a dirty word. Being kind and caring provides employees feelings of validation and appreciation. Believing leaders should be unfeeling and disengaged from employees is at odds with reality. Showing empathy and understanding is generally rewarded with loyalty. Focus on elevating others. There is a reason that we have teams and we aren't just one-woman bands. By focusing on growing and nurturing your team's talents, you can work smarter, not harder. The male go-to of being self-focused and self-centered will almost never turn a group of people into a high-performing team. However, a focus on development and elevation of all, well, it almost always will. Being humble is not the same as saying you are humbled. Women are far more prepared to acknowledge their mistakes, their knowledge gaps, listen to other opinions, and change for the better. Whilst not all women will show humility, the best leaders do. And these are just some of the things female leaders can teach their male counterparts. Did you notice a trend to these skills? Most of them, they're soft skills. Did you know that a study by global consulting firm Haig Group found that women outperform men in 11 of 12 key emotional intelligence competencies? They actually say in the study that if more men acted like women in employing their emotional and social competencies, they would be substantially and distinctly more effective in their work. And according to Pew Research Centre's Women in Leadership survey, 34% of workers say that women have an edge over men when it comes to being honest and ethical, while just 3% believe men are better at this. The rest, believe it or not, couldn't see a difference. The other results from the Women in Leadership survey are just as interesting. They found that more women in the workplace equals better problem solving, because diversity of thought leads to better problem solving. When we collaborate with people of different genders, different sexual orientations, different ethnicities, and race in our workplace, we all do better. Female leaders are more collaborative. Researchers have found that women are better at making deals in the Senate than their male peers, collaborating and working across party lines in greater numbers than men are capable of. Women make terrific mentors. While studies have shown women have a much more difficult time finding mentors than men, 30% of those surveyed by Pew Research felt women made better mentors than men, while only 5% felt men were better than women. Millennial women are actually more educated than men. Today's young women are starting their careers better educated. A more educated workforce is essential for implementing innovative techniques, challenging the status quo, and introducing new business approaches. If women are more educated, then they're critical tools to ignite the growth of the company. If these 4 reasons aren't enough, think about this. A 2016 survey of 21,980 publicly traded companies across 91 countries concluded that the presence of more female leaders in top positions of corporate management correlates with increased profitability of these companies. This confirms what study after study for more than a decade has found, that having increased female leadership on your team leads to increased financial results. If that doesn't convince you, what will? Traditionally and currently, during an emergency, disaster, or crisis, most organisations use the command and control type response. More often than not, it has been with a male leader in control. Whether or not this is the best structure to deploy in a corporate environment may well be another topic for another day. But what we've found is that most, not all, females that work in resilience take a back seat during the response phase and gravitate more towards recovery. This is, I believe, due to the perception that men are more suited to response, and as we've discussed in previous sessions, that a lot of crisis and emergency management folk are ex-military or emergency services, where 80% of their leaders are men, and as we see with firefighters, only 7.3% of their first responders are female. And that makes the pool quite shallow. But I ask the question, are men actually better at response, or should more women be stepping in to run their teams? Let's take a look at the types of leadership and managerial qualities that are required during a crisis. Resilient leaders are genuinely, sincerely empathetic towards their employees, customers, and their communities. And remember, empathy is often not displayed by male leaders. Resilient leaders must Simultaneously, take a hard, rational line to protect financial performance from the invariable softness that accompanies such disruptions. Resilient leaders are skilled at triage, able to stabilise their organisations to meet the crisis at hand while finding opportunities amid difficult constraints. Problem solving, anyone? Another trait more eagerly exhibited by women. Resilient leaders take decisive action with courage based on imperfect information, knowing that expediency is essential. Courage, not overconfidence. Resilient leaders seize the narrative at the outset, being transparent about current realities, including what they don't know, while also painting a compelling picture of the future that inspires others to persevere. Winning hearts and minds, humility, admitting knowledge gaps, more perceived feminine traits. Resilient leaders stay focused on the horizon, anticipating the new business models that are likely to emerge and sparking the innovations that will define tomorrow. And that's really elevating others and adapting. Again, something else we're better at. So as you can see, the best traits that resilient crisis and emergency leaders and managers need to have are most often found in female leaders. Well, I hope I've given you some food for thought today. I also hope that this information helps you to understand your leadership style a little better and maybe even become a better leader. Next month's topic is wide open. I'd encourage all of you to send through some ideas, things you want to talk to us about, whatever it might be. For those of you who don't have to run off, please stay on and let's have a chat, not just about coronavirus and the impacts that might be having on you, but anything you want to chat about. Give me some feedback on how this has gone today. But for those who do have somewhere else to be right now, until next month, thank you for joining me.